Fudge! Well, if you've been following the channel and you watched the last video, you saw that I got it apart. The Mavi 2 that's been wrecked, I got it apart. It was not the correct way to take it apart. I took everything out through the top. The correct way is actually through the bottom. Now, let me just tell you some of the challenges I've had working on this truck. Number one, parts are really, really hard to obtain unless you physically go down to a dealership, because Ford's online ordering sucks. It is like one of the worst websites ever. Some of the dealerships do have their own like online portal type thing for ordering parts, but the pictures don't match. There's very little description, so it's just like a S show to get parts ordered for this thing. Originally I thought that I was going to repair the radiator shroud that holds all this cooling module in there, and after I got it back in the truck and started thinking about it, and also having a problem with air conditioning, I said to myself, if you put this part in that's been jury rigged back together, which, well, by the way, by me, then you may void your warranty on the air conditioner or anything else that has to do with the front end on it. And I did not want that to happen because, like I said, the truck only has 7,000 miles on it. So I went back, took everything back off, and then had to evacuate air conditioning, flush everything out because I think I had too much oil in it, and then reassemble. And it was a very big learning process. Hopefully from watching this video I can point out where you don't want to make the mistakes that I made. Like for instance, the wiring connector is right there at the bottom corner of the cooling module, and all you got to do is unplug it and the wiring stays in the radiator housing rather than trying to take it out with everything still in there. That was dumb. I figured that out. So as you watch this, just know that I put it all back together once, took it all back apart, put in a new radiator shroud, and then reassembled everything. And that's where you're going to get the, hey, this is how you actually do it. And it all comes up from the bottom. But let me tell you, this was a challenge getting it all back together, and the air conditioning was the biggest one that I had. So let's get going with the video. I'm going to try to make a sense out of this. If you see something that's out of like the time sequence, that's because it actually happened twice, and I learned a lot in both times. So let's get going with the video. Okay, so let's recap. First of all, the truck drove into the back of a huge semi-wrecker that had a boom coming out the back with a hitch on it. Now, the XL Maverick Hybrid, even that model, has emergency braking with emergency stop. So you might say, why didn't it stop if it saw something in front of it? Well, probably because of the extension of the back of that wrecker coming out. I believe that the collision assist didn't actually activate until it was too close, and then by that time it had already gone through the radiator. Now, due to the fact that this one doesn't have radar in the front of it, I'm guessing that the camera is the system that it uses to not hit anything, so it would make sense that that distance was shortened. And I'm not even sure if you put on the brakes at all, if it stopped itself. Since you got to take all the hoses off, these are the most useful tools that I found on Amazon: ring nose pliers, and also pliers kit for removing all these stinking weirdo clamps and things. So without these, it would have been much more difficult and maybe did some damage to it. So awesome. I put a link down below if you're looking at getting some of these. This was like $30, and that was not much more. I don't even know the price, but it'll be down below. Check it out. Once you get every one of these stupid hoses disconnected, you've got your auxiliary radiator, you've got your transmission cooler, radiator hoses, air conditioning, everything's disconnected. So we're basically ready to drop down the air conditioning cooling module, or cooling module I think is what Ford calls it. So I'll show you how the easiest way to get this thing down. Alright, this whole thing is held up by this bar right here. 13mm bolts, 4 of them going across. At this point, you may want to put a jack right here just to hold it up while you're messing with it. Okay. That just clips in. And then you've got these ears that are right here. 2 more wire clips. Oh, you've got these ears right here that get in the way. So go ahead and alright. Now that's out of the way. I'll do the other side real quick. Love it. Okay. I've got the ears out of the way so it won't hit anything, and I'm going to try to slowly come down a little bit and drop it down without hitting anything. You want to make sure that you're not catching anything on the hoses. There she blows. There's your complete cooling module intact. And really the only thing you have to do to get it out now is just tilt it out and lift up. And that's all your radiators, your condenser, your transmission cooler and everything right there. So I am in good shape now as far as like moving forward. Alright, in Mavi number 1, I've got all the parts that FedEx delivered next door that I've had to go get. And I'm going to take them out and take a look, make sure they're the right ones. Well, I'm a pretty happy camper tonight. All the parts were the correct ones. Of course, Fairway Ford I had no doubt about. The grill and the new top deflector. The condenser and the radiator from Rock Auto were indeed the correct ones. Awesome, super cool. Got some new AC gaskets here for the lines and the replacement active shutters. So all in all, everything looks like it's going to go in just fine. So that is awesome. Well, it's reconstruction day, and I put the Maverick up on ramps, and then I let the air out of the back tires just for good measure. See if I could get a little more angle since this thing seems to come up from underneath. So we're going to see how that works. Okay, so go ahead and remove your ears. There's 4 bolts, and just kind of move them out of the way because you're going to hit the crap out of those trying to get this thing back in. And it's really pretty simple to bolt it back up. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and get the whole module put together to put it in at once. Great. Okay, the first thing that goes on the radiator, electric motor radiator. That's what this first one is. It goes on the very bottom. So you got your clips, hooks here, clip, clip, clip. So I'm going to put that on. Okay, then your transmission oil cooler goes on that tab and this tab, and it clips right here. So now we got the 2 components on. So close. Okay, so then you've got your 3 bolts that hold this very bottom cooler on, right? Then the condenser clips in here, and it goes over these snaps. And you're ready to put this thing back in. It's looking good. So I'm going to set this in the housing and see how it works, putting that thing up in there now. Alright, I'm imagining this is going to be quite fun and a barrel of monkeys. So I'm going to get the assembly, set it in here, and see if I can get it up there without breaking anything. Awesome. The assembly sits in there really well, nicely on the little pegs there. Now I'm hoping that once I get it up in there, I have enough room to move it back out to get the wiring harness in. That was really my only concern as far as like getting this thing back together. So I have my new radiator support housing with the new shutters and everything. And then this is going to go, this is going to sit in right there on the tabs on the bottom, the rubber isolators. There we go. And then these clips here go on the top like that, and they slide through and they click into the front of it. Oh, I got it upside down, dang it. There we go. There we go. That makes a big difference. Alright, so she's ready to go back in. Awesome. Now the back end of the truck is down, the front is up slightly, and it's going to be enough to basically tilt that in. Alright, get everything out of the way. Should be able to lift it up. And then there's two 10mm bolts you can just get started. There we go. And that'll hold it in place. Make sure you get it in there good enough. That'll hold it in place till we get the rest of it on. Lord have mercy. Okay, of everything that gave me a fit putting this thing back together, the air conditioning system was the #1 thing. The Maverick hybrids use a compressor similar, it may be actually the same one that as they use on the Priuses, which is electrically driven off of the hybrid battery. The Mavericks made for the United States are using 1234YF, the new refrigerant that's supposed to be environmentally friendly, but what it is environmentally expensive. That's what this stuff is. It's $40 a can for 8 ounces. Now let's look at some of the specs. The 2.5 hybrid engine uses 5.1 ounces of oil and a total charge of 17.6 ounces of YF 1234. So for a total of 22.7 ounces, which means the total capacity is less than 2 Yingling Light loggers for the system of oil and refrigerant. Now, while the system I'm fairly confident would run fine on 134A, the older refrigerant, I decided to keep it the same, keep it factory, just for the warranty. Because if you take it to Ford, they're going to run it through the machine, and it's going to say, "Hey, this is the wrong refrigerant for this truck." Put everything back together. I pulled a vacuum on it. I bought the special adapters for it and a new gauge set, just so there wasn't any contamination with my old 134A. And indeed, there was no leaks. I added about 3.5, maybe 4 ounces of oil, thinking, you know, it blew out that much when the condenser got harpooned, and it wouldn't take more than 8 ounces. So I kept trying, and it wasn't cooling well. At that point, I had to tear everything back down. All right, I bought this super high quality Lichamp gauge set, and it wasn't very expensive on Amazon. And the reason I did, because it came with all the fittings for this stupid thing for the Y1234, and I figured, what the heck, I might as well just get a new one. Okay, so I had the suction on for about 30 minutes, and it is at -30, and it hadn't moved one bit. So it should be good as far as like the adding the refrigerant. Now this takes R1234YF.
and it's about $38 a can. This is 8 ounces, and this truck will take about 2.3 cans of this, so I can go ahead and safely add 2 cans without even breathing. I left my scale at home, but I'll guesstimate on that last 3 ounces. I'm a little stumped why I won't accept any more refrigerant. I'm kind of... Now when you think about it, it only has 22.7 ounces in it, and let's say it only lost like a ½ ounce with the condenser getting harpooned. Well, then I added another 4 ounces, and we were already half of the capacity of the whole system in just oil. So you can see how it can compound an issue trying to repair the system. The only way, if something gets broken, to actually make sure you have the right oil balance is to flush out the lines, the evaporator, and drain the compressor, and then add the oil back in. When you buy a new compressor, it comes with a full charge of oil, so what are you going to do with all that oil? So that was, I believe, why I couldn't get it to take a charge. After flushing, after pulling a vacuum again with no leaks, and then recharging it with Y134, and I think I used 4 ounces of oil, something like that, saying that there might have been like an ounce still in the lines or still residual, it charged up just fine. Now I took my Lariat and checked the temperature, compared it to a full charge of 17 ounces that it did take after I cleaned everything out on the XL, and it was identical as far as like the output of temperature. So what I would say is this, is that if you're going to do air conditioning work on the hybrid, it's such a small amount of refrigerant and oil in there that you almost have to clear it out to make sure you can get the right amount of oil in, and not damage the $1,000 compressor, but also not have too much oil in that doesn't allow for enough refrigerants. Now, the only other thing that I ran into that jacked me up was the ambient air temperature sensor is on the bumper itself. So when you plug in the electrical connector for the front bumper assembly, right, which has the lights on it and that, it also plugs in the ambient air temperature sensor. If you look up in your radio and you see your ambient air temperature and it's like 50 degrees, your compressor is not going to come on. You can't charge it because the compressor isn't running. So you have to actually reset that ambient air temperature to whatever it is outside. I found if you held AC and recirculate at the same time for like 15-16 seconds, it would reset that ambient air temperature, pops up to about 85 degrees, which it was, and then the electric compressor kicks in. And that was critical, because without having that reset, I couldn't get any of the system to come on at all. And oil charge is critical on these systems. So let's go on with the video. Yes, I got it fixed, but only after I drained all the oil out and flushed out the lines and added in the correct amount of oil. Okay, so I've got some 1, 2, 3, 4 YF flush in the can, and I'm going to back flush it from here, from the compressor line, back to the evaporator, back out to here. Should be good. This is definitely one of the things I struggled with, is how much oil is in the system, how much was left in the condenser, how much got blown out. So I went ahead and just took the 3 bolts off, took the electric compressor and turned it upside down. I'm draining all the oil out, so there really shouldn't be very much residual oil in the system. I'm going to go ahead and blow it out one more time before I put everything back together, but that should give me a pretty clean starting point to put new refrigerant oil in. I've got the correct refrigerant oil, the Y1234 YF bend you over refrigerant oil. So I've got 4.1 ounces of the super special Y1234 oil, and I'm going to add that back into the compressor. So basically this compressor has a full charge of oil, just like if it was a new compressor. This is the O-ring kit that I purchased. It seems to be the correct one for all the little O-rings that go in here, so I'm going to go ahead and see if we can get these replaced before I put them back together. Alright, I got all the wiring put back in. You've got basically two looms that come across. One goes across the top and terminates here at your latch, and then there's another one that goes across, and it basically goes all the way across over to your backup alarm. So, and it goes down to the middle portion there. So the wire's back in it. Now I'm ready to go ahead and zip up this assembly here. It basically just folds up in there with two clips on the top. So yay. It's got these two rubber isolators that go in there, and it's going to come and slot through here, and it's going to hold the top of it up tight up next to this. All right. Radiator hose, two transmission lines, two bottom radiator hoses for the electronics. Over here I've got the other lines on too, so all the connectors are made as far as like the hoses go. Basically you just take them off. Basically you're just going to put them on like you took them off, so no big deal. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 quick connectors. You don't need a tool to take those off. You're just going to use your fingers and squeeze in on the plastic, and it will pop off. You got to fiddle around with it a little bit, but it wasn't too hard to get off. The hardest ones are these regular stupid clamps. Alright, I got everything hooked back up. It's time to put the fan in, hook that sucker up, and then basically bleed and fill up the antifreeze, and then the air conditioning. We'll have to vacuum it down and charge it, but I want to do the antifreeze first. All right, I got everything hooked back up. Helpful hint number 427 on this vehicle: put your fan back in before you hook up any of your hoses, because they get in the way. So I had to take a couple hoses back off, put the fan back down through there, and then put the hoses back on, and then I was good to go. Now I started filling up the antifreeze jugs where they were empty. Closest thing I could find to the factory antifreeze was the Peak right here, and it was cheaper than the Ford, and I looked all over, and this one says yellow, but it also says Ford 2019 and newer. And what I was looking for to make sure was here on the back, and I'll show you here in a second, it says use anywhere VC 13 GLG is specified. So that 13 is the latest one that goes for the Ford. So this will completely be the same as the Ford, and it's cheaper. I got it on Amazon. There's a link down below if you want to see. Right down here it says the same as the GL13 whatever it is. That's the Ford model for the antifreeze, and there's a lot that they'll tell you is the same. This is the only one that I saw that said Ford 19 and newer, and fits the 13, so, and it's yellow, so that's good. I've got a bleeder in here. I don't know if I'm going to use it, tell you the truth. I don't even know if I need it. So I'm going to crank this thing up, start her up, and see what happens with the air conditioner off, of course, because I haven't done it. But everything else is pretty much done as far as like the mechanical parts go. So I'm kind of excited to start her up and see if we can get her to come up to temperature. I've got both of these filled up. A lot of air bubbled up through it, so hopefully it'll be good. Let me get this thing cranked up. Fingers crossed.
Well, it's blowing hot air. I think I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes, get a little air out of it. If it bubbles, great. I may use that bleeder. I don't know, but the heater's working. I don't got a bunch of crap running out of the bottom, so awesome. It looks like we're ready to charge this thing up. No leakage after 30 minutes, so I'm ready to throw some Freon to this thing. No leaks, minus 30, that's great. I'm gonna go ahead and get my 1234YF bend you over refrigerant ready to put in. Now, if you've got the front bumper cover off, you will not get the compressor to work because it needs the ambient air temperature, which is in the middle of this bumper cover. If it can't see what the temperature is outside, the compressor will not fire up. Believe it or not. If the oil's right, the capacity for the refrigerant is, let me see here, 17.6 ounces. 17.6. I did find a 12 ounce can. Most of the cans I found were 8 ounce, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the 12 ounce can, and then I'll probably get my scale out and we'll figure out the rest of it. But I'm going to see if it even takes this. Hopefully she'll crank up and work like a banshee, so we'll see. You're going to hook up your can. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up the can. And I'm going to bleed just a hair out. There we go. Get the air out of the line. And I'm not going to open up my high side, just the low side. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the air conditioner on. Compressor's humming. Awesome. Seems like it's humming like it's supposed to. We're running at 20 low, 175 high. Let's look on the inside. Here, you're looking at about 48, 45. Jeez. This thing's cooling like a mug and it's only got 12 ounces in it. Now, I need to, this is empty, so I'm going to go ahead and close it. And I've got a partial can of before. It's supposed to shut off, but that didn't. One of the reasons I couldn't get the compressor to kick in was the ambient air setting was jacked up. It was showing 50 degrees, which wouldn't allow the compressor to kick on. So I had to hold recirculate and max AC button down for like 15 seconds, and then it reset to 80 degrees. So that's awesome. Now let me
hook this baby up, and I've got a scale. I added about 4.4 additional ounces, which is a little bit under, which is fine. We're going to live with that. I'm going to look at the temperature on the inside, but no more noises, no leaks. Antifreeze looks good. I'll let it sit overnight, and then I'll be putting this baby back together tomorrow. Holy crap, awesome. Okay, it's getting down in the green area, so I would say it's working like a champ in comparison to my Lariat. The temperatures are identical. I'll let it sit overnight and double check it in the morning, but I think we are golden on this. Okay, it's a new morning. I got some sleep. I'm sore as crap. I thought that I would go ahead and check the air conditioning, make sure that it's working correctly before I button everything back up. Because I got to take the bumper and get it ready to go, and then the ambient air temperature sensor is taken apart. So I'm going to do that first, double check the temperatures on the AC, and then I'll be moving towards finishing up. The outside temperature looks like it's correct, 71. I had the air conditioning on in the shop last night, so the electric compressor sounds just like it's supposed to. You can hear that kind of little bit of a whine. I know that because I compared it to my Lariat, and it absolutely sounds exactly like that on mine. So no leaks, no antifreeze, no nothing. Need a little bit more here in the hybrid control. Yeah, need just a little bit more antifreeze in the hybrid control, but looking good. Okay, that's kind of trippy. The motor was cool, and I didn't notice it, but if you look at the louvers, they're completely closed because everything's cold. And that's to help get it to operating temperature as quick as possible for gas mileage. So, indeed, these are working correctly. Awesome. Alright, I'm getting close to being at the end of this beautiful, lovely job, putting it back together. And I will say this, it looks factory. That's for sure. Everything works. These the air shutters work great. I've got the jumper cables reinstalled. I've got a circuit breaker here for those that goes over here with a quick connect plug. I've got a video coming up about how to do that. It's pretty interesting. Works great. So I'm about ready to put the bumper cover back on. Headlights are reinstalled. And if you saw the movie Castaway and you remember the volleyball Wilson and the blood over it, that's kind of what happened here. I had blood all over my hand from something, and evidently got it all over the fender. But this was not a lot of fun, I can tell you that. Here's the bumper cover with the new grill. I've installed the new grill portion here with move the emblem over. This right here is your outside temperature sensor, and without it, the air conditioning system will not work. Absolutely. So if you don't plug this in while you're working on your air conditioner, nothing's going to happen. And you're going to go, what in the heck's going on with this? But this looks good. I'm going to be putting it back on here in just a minute. I just took it on a test drive. Look at the condensation on that AC line. Tell me that ain't working great. Awesome. And everything looks like it's factory put back together. Beautiful.
Okay, so I made it back home. Putting that in was a good butt kicking, tell you the truth. Usually when I do a bunch of work on a vehicle, it looks a lot better when it's done, but that's basically just mechanical work where it impaled itself on the radiator and the condenser. Here's my overall thought process. That's what you're going to have to do if you're replacing a condenser, a radiator, transmission cooler, anything that gets damaged in the front end. You have to take that whole thing out, that cooling module. And that's one of the biggest problems, was getting all those hoses off, the 2 radiator hoses. The clamps on the Maverick suck. They're just terrible to work with. But once that's all off, then it's not that bad to drop it down after you take off the bumper and the headlights and all the other garbage that's on the front end. So that's kind of what you're having to deal with anytime you're working on the front end of it. Now, how much did that all cost? Well, I kind of ciphered it out and put a pencil to it. This isn't exactly everything that I purchased. I purchased a gauge set that I'll use down the road or something, but the Y1, 2, 3, 4 is like unbelievably expensive. I spent $1,784.43 on the refrigerant, the flush, all the parts. The most expensive part was the radiator support. It was $482. Second would be the grill, was $279. When you go through all of that, it starts adding up. O-rings, the refrigerant was probably about $120, and the flush another $50. So that all adds up. I'll also say this: if that truck wasn't under warranty and had 7,000 miles on it, I could have put 134A in it and saved quite a bit of money. Will that compressor run 134A? Absolutely. Without a doubt, it would be fine. However, if you take it in for service and the compressor's crapped out, the $1,000 compressor, they're going to put it on their reclaimer and it's going to say, wait a minute, this is not the right refrigerant, and they're going to deny your claim, and then you're going to have to pay out of pocket for it. So that's mainly the reason that I did that. The coolant, there wasn't anything weird about that. They say to use something to burp it, but I don't believe you really have to. Just keep filling it up and let it come to temperature. Once the thermostat opens, it's gonna circulate itself. As far as the air conditioning goes on the Y1234YA, whatever it is critical getting your oil charge balance, your oil balance with the refrigerant. So I think dumping the electric compressor out was the right way to go, and then adding in, I think 4 ounces is what we put in. The truck's back on the road. It doesn't have any claims from the insurance saying that it's been wrecked, so it has a clean vehicle history. So I am happy that it's back on the road. Hopefully someone will be a little bit more careful. Next video is coming up. I'm going to be working on Old Blue. That's my Wrangler TJ. And after that, I'm going to tow the Toyota down to the shop with and get all the parts and everything over there. And we will be repairing the 22R because everybody said forget it. They did not want to see it changed into an electric, and I yield to the common vote. Any questions, comments, post them below. The Maverick is not fun to work on. You got to take everything off to get to anything. However, I would rather do that than pay somebody, $20,000 to tell me it's totaled. So it's ready. It's back on the road. I appreciate you watching. David from the Redneck Garage. Keep turning wrenches.